This podcast is presented by My Place Hotels.
It's time for Bringing the Heat with Bryan Nolen.
What is going on, ladies and gentlemen, is another edition of Bringing the Heat, the debut edition of 2025. I'm your fearless leader, Mr. Bryan Timothy Dale Nolen. We're going to be recapping Bowman-Gray. We're going to be previewing the Daytona 500. It is only a couple days away. But first, let's dive into Mr. Dalton Hopkins' interview with the man that is going to be going after Junior Motorsports' debut, potentially, in the Daytona 500, that being Mr. Justin Allgaier. So without further ado, let's play Mr. Hopkins' interview right now.
Now it's time for...
But it will be the most decorated driver in the field. Justin Allgaier is a NASCAR Xfinity Series champion.
To go into the Inferno with Bryan.
Hello.
Hello. Is this Justin Allgaier?
It is. How are you?
Hey, man, I'm doing well. This is Dalton Hopkins. Sorry about that. I think I pressed the wrong button there.
You're all good. No worries.
Hey, I first off, I really appreciate you taking this call, taking the time out of your day to speak with me today. I know, I think tomorrow's going to be a pretty busy day for you, my friend.
It is. I'm actually pretty excited about that. So not a problem at all, man.
You have every right to be. So, I mean, first off, how you been? I know this offseason has been pretty solid for you. I mean, you coming off what was a milestone moment for your career, and I understand you went to a Lightning game recently.
I did, yeah. So, I've been lucky enough to be a Lightning fan for a number of years now, and it was cool because the guy that does kind of the hype up, MC type work, he actually rocked a picture, pulled one up of me from 2012 at one of the first games that I went to, and it was him and I standing there together, and it was just so cool to kind of have, that photo and to kind of just think about all the time that it's been since then. But the offseason's been great. It's been busy, honestly. Probably the busiest point of what I can remember the offseason being like for me in my career, which for good reason, right? I mean, it's, obviously winning the championship and having all of that momentum behind you. There's a lot of things that go along with that, a lot of stuff that kind of NASCAR requires that you got to go do. And then on the other side of it, it's been busy because, unfortunately my parents, as they get older, they've slowed down a good bit. And I bought half of my dad's business about 2 years ago now. And so not only has my off-season been busier, but I've also spent a lot more time back at home in Illinois helping them with the business and just kind of keeping that going in a forward direction. So a lot of it is self-induced, but at the same time, I'm a firm believer that if you're not moving forward and you're trying to at least even stay still, you're just moving backwards. So got a lot of cool stuff. Got a lot of cool stuff going on right now.
That's an outstanding attitude to have. And I think it's a fantastic thing that you're taking on that responsibility as well. But you have another responsibility coming up here pretty soon, and I noticed you went to that Lightning game with Frank Gallagher, the president for Daytona International Speedway. And speaking of Daytona, so tomorrow it looks like it's going to be announced that you are going to be making that start with Junior Motorsports' first entry in the Daytona 500, or that attempt at least. Can you talk about your emotion behind that? You said you're excited for it, but can you kind of talk about how that came to be and your initial reaction to it?
Yeah, part of what you just said there, right? The first attempt at a NASCAR Cup Series race for Junior Motorsports. That's a huge moment for me. When I got asked to be a part of it, obviously there's lots of questions and rumors, and is Junior Motorsports going Cup racing? Are they going to get a charter? There's all these things that have happened over the last 4 or 5 years, and honestly, I really never thought that the day would come that they would get to make a Cup start, right? But I also didn't expect to be the person that would be behind the wheel of it. So, I think from my standpoint, it's a huge moment. It's something that this sport has obviously been around for a long time. And it's been, a great sport, but Dale Jr. and the Earnhardt name, whether it be Dale Earnhardt Jr. or his dad, or even really Kelly Earnhardt Miller, for that matter, has created a name for herself in the sport as well. And junior motorsports has been such an iconic part of the Xfinity Series for so long that I just feel like that this is a big moment for the sport, right? As much as it's a big moment for myself, it's a big moment for the sport, and really, really excited for it. And it's not going to be easy. There's a lot of moving parts that have to go together, and it is not going to be easy. But at the same time, I wouldn't want to tackle this opportunity with any other team or any better team for that matter, and get to go have some fun, and it's going to be a really cool experience.
Can you talk about can you tell me the story of when you first found out? I mean, who approached you, and when did you find out?
Yeah, actually, it's a funny story. I got called into Kelly's office, and it was right after the season was over, and it was I don't know. I walked in and I felt like I was getting called to the principal's office for some reason. I walked in and everybody's faces were kind of mute, right? They just didn't have like this emotion on their face, and so I'm like, oh man, what did I miss, right? Like, we just won a championship. Life's great. And so then they started kind of going into some of the details on it and what we were doing, and I'm sitting back there going, man, this is really, really cool. In my mind, though, I wasn't expecting them to ask me to drive it. Like, I don't know why. I guess I just thought maybe they were bringing me in to tell me what their plan was, and not that they owed me that or that that would ever be a thing, but I think in my mind that's where I went with it first. And then they said, well, we'd love for you to be the driver of it. Would you have any interest in that? And I said, this is always funny. I actually gave the same response to Roger Penske when I signed my first NASCAR contract. And I don't know if this is the smart answer or not, but it's the answer that I'm always going to go with. I told him, I said, what's amazing, and yes, I'm definitely interested, but I would love to go talk about it with my wife before I give you an answer. And I felt like that was the fitting answer for me, is that, this is a decision that, was a family decision. And we sat down and we talked about it. And I mean, I think the easy answer is yes, right? But at the same time, I felt like I owed it to her to have that conversation first. And then I immediately picked up the phone and called Kelly and LW back and said, yep, I'm 100% in. And this is like we've already talked about. It's a great opportunity. Not even from getting the opportunity to go back and be a part of the Cup Series or the Daytona 500, but to do it in the capacity that we have, to have the relationship that I've had with Dale and Kelly and LW and really everybody at Junior Motorsports. You don't get the opportunity to stay in one place as long as I've been able to, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Rick Brand and Brand Professional Agriculture in that regard. They've been a integral part of me staying at Junior Motorsports and the amount of time that I've been there. And so, that was the next part of that is where does Rick stand on this? Have you discussed this with him? What does that look like? And so, that all got communicated amongst all the parties. And so, put a big smile on my face. Obviously we've held on to this for a while now. Little did I know that this was all going behind the scenes, really, even before the season was over. And we actually were going to talk about this. They wanted to bring this opportunity to me before the season ended, but, we were in the playoffs and things were going the way that they were going. And so they kind of held off. And they were getting to a point of where they needed answers, right? They wanted to make sure that this was something that I was going to be willing to do. And so when it finally got to the championship, they're like, well, we can't ask him the week of Phoenix, right? So it was right thereafter, and it's been really cool. And I feel like, obviously, other than the way that you guys found out, it's been really, really quiet, which I love the fact of, right? I feel like that we've done a really good job of keeping this close to our vest, and tomorrow when the world gets to find out, I think it's going to be really, really special, and I think it's going to be something that a lot of Dale Earnhardt Jr., a lot of Junior Motorsports fans are gonna take a lot of enjoyment out of this, and I'm proud of what we're going to be able to go try to accomplish. Now that doesn't negate the fact that we have to go to the racetrack and execute, right? We have to go there and we have to qualify good and we have to try to race our way in. But there would never be an opportunity that I would rather be in than going down to Daytona with with the crew that we have assembled and the car that we have assembled.
Yeah, you said a lot about, I kind of want to lean back into the Junior Nation thing a little bit later, but I do want to talk about you for a second. I mean, so now you have this opportunity. It's a huge opportunity for Junior Motorsports, but now you're going to be going into Daytona. And, I mean, I don't want to say it'll be a ton of pressure, but, I mean, how do you handle something like that? I mean, how do you handle that emotionally, knowing that there is a chance that you could not qualify? I mean, I'm assuming you guys will have great equipment, but I'm sure your confidence is high, but how do you handle that kind of pressure going into something like that? Because you have not been in that position in quite some time.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a unique opportunity, right? Because I look at the competitors that we're up against. You know, you've got a kind of a stacked field, really. If I'm looking at it the way, you know, objectively, it's kind of a stacked field of guys that are going to go try to qualify their way in for the Daytona 500. It is the biggest race of the year for the NASCAR Cup Series, and you know that's not taken lightly, right? And I think that you know, when I look at the open field, you know, I think number one, it's going to be very difficult to qualify on time, right? If I'm just thinking about who's there. But number two, I look at, you know, you have Jimmy and you have Martin, both of which are extremely accomplished, very successful race car drivers that do this on a regular basis. You know, and they're going to be very difficult. You've got, from a speed standpoint, I mean, you know, the Project 91 with Elio has all the makings of having a lot of speed. The 62 car with Alfredo has typically qualified pretty well in the past. I mean, the list goes on and on, right? You could look at every one of them and say, okay, this is their strengths, this is their weakness. I think for me, though, looking back at last year and Jimmy having to try to qualify his way in and, you know, being in that, like, danger zone all the way until, I think, what was it, getting into turn one on the white flag lap was when he kind of solidified his position in making it into the Daytona 500. You know, there is not a world that I live in where I don't expect Jimmy just to be in, right? Like, I mean, you know, that's just my natural way of thinking. And when I watched last year and I saw the pressure and the stress of all of it, I was like, you know what? If I'm ever in that position, I'm going to value the opportunity and just go for it. And I think that for us, you know, obviously we have to really focus hard on qualifying. You know, that is the easiest way to make it, right? If you can qualify your way in and lock yourself in on time, that makes the duels easier. That makes your preparation for the Daytona 500 easier. If that doesn't happen, then you have to kind of restack yourself and rethink about how you're going to be, you know, in that moment. And you know, I have a great team around me. I've been lucky enough to be a part of lots of races at Daytona, whether it be on the Xfinity Series side, the ARCA Series, the Cup Series, you know, and I've had a lot of curveballs thrown at me. But I've also learned that you could crash coming to the green on a start, you know, that somebody misses a gear and you jam up, and that would be the end of your Daytona 500 if you don't qualify on time. So, you know, there's a lot that you have to understand in that. And here's the other part. I don't want to let Junior Nation down. You know, we talked about this already, but there is an unbelievable number of fans that support Junior Motorsports, that support Junior Nation. And, you know, I think I'm looking at it from the outside looking in. A lot of my experience with this is like, I want to see this happen as a fan of you know, as a Junior Nation fan, right? I was a Chance 2 Motorsports fan back in the day whenever Dale Jr. had his Busch Series team with Martin Truex Jr. Big fan of that back in the day. A lot of supporters for that. I was a big DEI fan, right? I thought that was a cool moment. You know, the Earnhardt name has been something that I've been a fan of for a number of years. So to know the gravity of that, and to know that's what we're trying to attempt to make the Daytona 500, that's a big moment. And so, you know, I'm excited. And I think too, from a sponsor standpoint, right, from the Traveler side of things, you know, they want to be a part of the Daytona 500. That's how this whole opportunity even started. That was their goal. They feel so strongly about the Daytona 500 and what it means to them. And you know, I'm excited to see, you know, kind of how that plays out and what that looks like.
I think a lot of people are going to be. I mean, this is probably going to be one of the more highly anticipated entries, considering all the talk behind junior motorsports in the last few years. But I do kind of want to lean into that a little bit. This kind of feels like it's been a long time coming, at least for JRM, and now it looks like it's finally happening. When you first joined in back in 2016. What did you ever see yourself making the first start for JRM in the Cup Series?
No chance. I really didn't. And I not because of any other reason other than number one, I don't know that I ever really saw junior motorsports as a junior motorsports entity having a Cup team, right? I always felt like maybe there would be a partnership somewhere, or maybe they would, have some sort of a combination or a lease program for maybe a race or two here or there, just to feel it out and see where it went, right? Like in my mind, and obviously I understand junior motorsports a lot better today than I did back then, but the business model of junior motorsports, Dale Jr. is very smart when it comes to this business, and I think that he understands the role that junior motorsports plays in the sport of NASCAR and growing and building and keeping as a pipeline for drivers and crew members and crew chiefs and spotters and all these things to kind of help grow their resumes. And he really loves that. Like when you sit there and talk to him, I was with him yesterday on a photo shoot for our friends at Carolina Carports, and he was like a young schoolboy, right? He was giddy, he was having a good time, he was cutting up with all of us, and he just enjoys that, and it was really fun to watch. And so, I don't know that I ever expected it to be like this, but at the same time, especially over the last couple of years, he's talked about it more and more, and Kelly has talked about it more and more about, how they would like to maybe have that opportunity or that role. And, realistically, I mean, let's just be honest, it is extremely expensive. They also understand the time and energy and the personnel that it takes to run at a high level. They feel very strongly that we can run a race like this in a one-off scenario, and do it well and do it right and check all the boxes. But I'm going to be honest with you, the amount of time and energy that they've had to spend on this is a lot. It's significant. This is a junior motorsports program. You're buying cars, you're buying equipment, you're buying, little stuff that are going to be a part of this. Now, granted, a lot of that stuff can then be consumed by the Xfinity Series shop, right? Whether that be tents or generator carts or things like that, but there's still an expense at having all of your own stuff to add to that car. And it's not even like we can just rob the stuff from the 88 car and that we run on now would be the 9 car, right? But our part-time car. Those are things that you're doing new and fresh, and you're making agreements with vendors that are Cup parts only, right? You're buying chassis, you're doing these things that are required, that literally are for one race, right? So it is an expense, but I think that for them, they saw value in this program. When this opportunity presented itself, they saw value in it. They felt like it was going to be a great opportunity for them, and it's going to be really, really special to see that junior motorsports Chevy hit the racetrack for the first time in the Cup Series. It's going to be a big moment.
Well, Justin, I really super appreciate your time. This has been fantastic. I'm sorry we went pretty far. I had a lot of questions for you, but I really appreciate you taking the time and speaking with me today.
What's going on, guys? Bryan Nolen, your host of Bringing the Heat, and I got something spectacular to share with you guys. For those that don't know, I'm also the operations manager, so I deal with flights, hotels, rental cars, and this has helped me so much. My Place Hotels is proud to be the official hotel sponsor of Frontstretch. Yes, folks, you heard that right. My Place Hotels with plush beds, in-room kitchen, and pet-friendly hotels. My Place makes for the perfect pit stop while traveling. You know what that means? I can even bring my 2 French bulldogs, Archer and Genty, with me while I'm on the road. Now, I probably won't do that because my wife would be lonely, but that's okay. I still have the option with my place. Race fans can use promo code Frontstretch to save 10% on your stay at any of our nationwide properties. Once again, 10% off nationwide with the code, in all caps, Frontstretch. This racing season, be sure to make my place your place.
Once again, that was my man, reporter, content king when he's at the racetrack, Mr. Dalton Hopkins. Got to hang out with him on the meetings for Frontstretch earlier this January. It's just a wonderful time, and an even better interview that he conducted. For more on the interview, check out the full interview on Frontstretch's YouTube channel, youtube.com/Frontstretch. Once again, youtube.com/Frontstretch. Let's head on over to what is still hot and bring in my co-host for the first show of 2025.
What's still hot? It's time to upgrade you on the latest news in NASCAR.
We're going to bring in my co-host for this week. He is a news writer / cars tour coverage for frontstretch.com. But we decided to bring him over to cover some short track and the NASCAR side of things on this past Saturday, or should I say 2 Saturdays ago. That being Mr. Chase Folsom. He was covering the clash at Bowman-Gray. Chase, first and foremost, thank you so much for co-hosting with me. Let's dive into Bowman-Gray. You were there. We watched it on the television. Chase Elliott won. What were your initial thoughts on this, and then where do we go from here?
First of all, I will be the first to tell you that I don't approve of a lot of the things that NASCAR does, but they hit it out of the park with this. It was everything that it should have been. The crowd atmosphere was your typical Bowman-Gray crowd, which is awesome. Everything about the event, the driver intros, the flyover was really sick. Like, everything that happened is what should happen for the Clash, and it was in a market of diehard fans. The racing was, in my opinion, pretty good. We had some tire fall off, which is what we didn't have at the Clash at LA. The drivers were physical, which is expected at Bowman-Gray. If you don't do that, you're going to get booed out of the building there. So I thought all around it was a great event. I'd love to see them back at Bowman-Gray. In what capacity, I'm not sure the direction they're going to go. I have some thoughts, but I'll let you give yours first.
Yeah, I feel like, well, first off, I thought the racing was good. I mean, the finish was okay. It was just a long. I would prefer like a 20-lap dash, but I mean, we're not going to always get like the crazy wild end of the race chaos that we usually get. So I mean, that was it. But I mean, overall the racing was solid. Better than LA, I will say that. And then you all know that the 9 fans left happy, so it's gonna get like a 90% Jeff Gluck's poll because you know the golden boy, Mr. Popular, won. So congrats to Chase Elliott. But I do think it will come back. Whether it comes back next year, I don't know. I've been hearing there's been ideas floated around. They could go to Brazil. They could, obviously Canada wouldn't work because it's like -50 there right now. So I mean, you know, I would frown upon that. It would not highly encourage that. But I mean, where do you see this? I mean, Ryan Preece said New Smyrna. You could. There's plenty of tracks in Alabama and Georgia or in Florida, even California that they could go to. Where do you see the Clash? Not just next year, but in the years after.
Well, I think there's 2 specific paths that NASCAR could go with this. On one hand, it's no secret that they want to explore international markets, right? Possibly overseas, in Brazil, go back to Japan, go to Europe, something like that. I think valuing and attacking those new markets is important. Like, we need to get out to those fans because NASCAR is not just a sport full of fans in America. There are fans of this sport all across the globe, and we need to find a way to get the product to them. However, what happened this past weekend at Bowman-Gray was fantastic because we invested in the roots of the sport, the short tracks, and they're not the only short track in America. There's a lot of short tracks across this country that would love the renovations that Bowman-Gray got, would need the help, and it would keep them alive for another couple decades. So I see them probably going in the more international direction, and there is another exhibition race, hint, hint, on our calendar that we could use the short track idea for. I just feel like for the Clash, there's warmer markets you could go to than Michigan or Wisconsin or something for a short track, and you could go overseas with the Clash and put on a unique event that's maybe not exactly to the mold of your typical NASCAR show and get your product out to new fans across the globe.
Yeah, I'm intrigued to see what happens. I mean, might as well take it to Brazil. It wouldn't hurt. Do a one-off, and then if it doesn't do well, then you can just bring it back to some like New Smyrna or something. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Last but not least, on the news and notes portion of the program here, the NASCAR Xfinity Series is going to be looking a little bit different after the 2025 season. However, Comcast announced on February the 4th the renewal of the decade-long partnership. They began in 2014. They're going to be having an Xfinity Fastest Lap program that awards one race point to the eligible driver and owner with the fastest single lap in each race. This also will be not just in the Cup Series, but in the Xfinity and in the Truck Series. Chase, were you of age when you started watching racing when you got 5 points for leading a lap and then 5 points for leading the most laps, or am I really, really aging myself?
You're not quite aging yourself. I do remember it. I was in elementary school, so
okay. I'm pushing it then.
Pushing it.
Yeah.
I think I love the idea of it though. Like we've got the point back for we've got a point for the fastest lap now. Give back the most laps led point. Give back the lap led point. I would love to see more award points, or I guess special points awarded. I don't know how to word that, but I would love to see more things like that because it would add a unique aspect to the championship fight all the way down to not the final race, but Martinsville to get into the Final Four.
Yeah, I think it's a fantastic idea. I think it is really, really encouraging that they're going in this direction. I like you said, I would love to see if they could do that for the overall laps led as well, get an extra bonus point like you were saying. I think it would be fantastic. So kind of came out of the blue, so I'm very, very encouraged with this, and we'll have to see if things become changes probably at the end of 2025, right before the 2026 season. So without further ado, let's dive on into our soundbite of the week, in which you spoke with SVG after the race in Bowman-Gray.
Well, Tony, what angered you at the end of the race? What did you take issue with?
What the hell do you think I was mad about? Dumb little runs us clear down to the infield. He wants to about everybody else, and he's the one that drives like a little. I'm gonna bust his ass.
Thanks, Tony.
Thank you.
And short track races.
It's time for the soundbites of the week.
The door open too much, and then once you got moved up, you didn't know how to. You just stuck up
Yeah,
there.
yeah, like felt like I could come down, but then they just ship you at the next corner. That's part of it, I guess. Yeah.
Why would it? I mean, you looked so natural out there all weekend. What was it about this kind of racing that suits you?
I'm not sure. I don't know. Like I felt comfortable in the car right from the start of practice. We had really good prep with Stephen and Josh, my spotter, and yeah, just felt good from the start and pushed on with it. It was pretty fun, but I guess it's like Martinsville. I'm good there because it's a little bit of road course technique, I guess, and yeah, it seems to suit me. With what, sorry? Yeah, it's still new to me. Like even at the last corner, I bumped and run the 17, and I feel bad for stealing a spot off them, but that's normal, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. It's pretty fun being able to hit people, but it's not fun when you're on the receiving end. Yeah, it was awesome. Like it's a good low stress way. Like most of the guys on the 88 crew are all new people for Trackhouse, so it's a good way for us all to settle in and a bit of team bonding, I guess, and then running well helps as well.
Once again, that was Mr. Chase Folsom talking with SVG. Chase, what did you get out of talking with SVG? Because it feels like when, especially I noticed last year in Martinsville, that he was getting the hang of it slowly but surely after a while. And it felt like he was getting the hang of it after the heats and everything, and ended up with a good result. What did you see out of SVG on Sunday?
It honestly shocked me. Like, you've got a guy, he told us on Saturday that he had never raced a single lap around a paved quarter-mile racetrack before. So he went into completely uncharted territory, something he's never really done in his entire life, and ran well. Outran his teammates for most of the weekend. Chastain ended up ahead of him at the end of the race, but he outran him for most of the weekend. So to see him pick up on it so quickly is encouraging, should be encouraging for SVG fans, because it means he's going to be pretty competitive this year. And I did enjoy when he called the Bowman-Gray fans interesting specimen. A guy from New Zealand has probably never seen the Winston-Salem, North Carolina fan base, so I got a good laugh out of that.
I mean, he's not wrong though, but I'm intrigued to see him. Obviously, he's going to be favorites at the road course, probably starting at COTA, but I'm intrigued to see him at super speedways as well as short tracks. Without further ado, let's dive on into our final thought segment and wrap it up.
It's going to be a drag race all the way back to the start-finish line. No caution. They're side by side, right to the line. Big crash. Here they come. Checkered flag.
The checkered flag is out, and it's time for the final thoughts.
Our final thought segment is in the air. Whatever you want to rant, rave, or anything in between. Mr. Chase Folsom, the floor is yours, my friend.
So I mentioned earlier, we've got two distinct paths we could take the All-Star Race and Clash, which is international or keep renovating short tracks. Yet for some reason, there is a section of our fan base that keeps going, oh, we got to bring it back to Daytona. Why? What benefit do we get out of bringing it back to Daytona just so we can junk race cars in a 7th super speedway race that nobody attended in the final year of the race? It's a terrible race. It wastes money. We don't need to do it, and the people just need to give up on it and let it go.
For me, it was something that I saw, I think it was early January, and it's called the Open Exemption Provisional, and the competition officials compared the new provisional spot to the promoter's choice provisional that's used in some form of short track racing to guarantee a starting spot. So with that being said, Elio Castroneves is guaranteed a spot in the Great American Race. What are we doing here, people? Does Kyle Larson go to the Indy 500 and he's automatically entered? No. I mean, we saw Fernando Alonso went and tried to qualify for the Indy 500 and he failed to qualify. So why are we doing this? Is NASCAR in need of such quote unquote star celebrities from other series that they are desperate to have them in? Are they so worried that Elio Castroneves and a great and great equipment is not going to qualify? Like, come on, we did not need this. We could have gone without it, and all we're doing is creating more and more negative headlines. Very disappointed in this, and hopefully we will not have to use it. What I'm very happy with is the content that Mr. Chase Folsom brings on Frontstretch.com. Chase, your Cars Tour season has not started up with your coverage yet. I think you guys start in early March. So what are you going to be cooking up before then? And then where should the fans potentially see you down the road?
I think we're kind of holding out until the Cars Tour starts up on March 1st at New River All-American Speedway. We've got some short track stuff in the works. It's honestly not 100% decided yet, but we'll have a full line of Cars Tour coverage at tracks like New River, South Boston, Hickory, North Wilkesboro, even down in Cordell, Georgia. So be sure to look out for all the Cars Tour content on Frontstretch.com and the YouTube channel Frontstretch Grassroots, where you can find all the Cars Tour driver interviews.
Once again, at the Bryan Nolen, you can follow Chase at @CFolsom_racing. And then last but not least, at Trey Lyle VT. Coming up next on the Frontstretch Podcast Network, so you got Through the Gears, new host Wyatt Watson's going to be covering all the latest betting odds for you. Once again, coming up on the Frontstretch Podcast Network. For Mr. Trey Lyle, Chase Folsom, I am Brian Timothy Dale Nolen. Thank you so much for joining us. We will recap Daytona coming up next week here on Bringing the Heat.
This podcast was presented by My Place Hotels.
My Place Hotels is proud to be the official hotel partner of Frontstretch. With plush beds, in-room kitchens, and pet-friendly hotels, My Place makes for the perfect pit stop when traveling. Frontstretch fans can use promo code Frontstretch to save 10% on your stay at any of our nationwide properties. Sign up for our Stay Rewarded program to get even more savings. With My Place Hotels, don't just stay, stay rewarded.